I'm going to bounce around a bit and try and wrap up some of this high level gravy concentrate that has been building up. Ladle no gravy before it's time. But it's been simmering long enough. I got to get it off before it goes stale. So, the microwaves are heating up the engines and the transmissions. I noticed this a couple weeks ago. I paid $3,000 to get this job back after one of their trucks blew up, and it's provably that the mechanic who opened it up dropped something in there accidentally or otherwise that seized at the bottom of the crankshaft where it meets the bearing race, and there was a piece of metal that got stuck under there. But at the time I was the new guy and the truth doesn't matter, and I understood that, so I paid $3,000 to get this job back. When they put me on this new truck, I watched that temp gauge obsessively, and I said so after my first trip when I got back. I was like, man, I was watching that temp gauge obsessively. A week ago, this truck broke down, and I explained to the old owner, who's the accountant at our company now, who came to get it off the side of the road with me, that I think I've noticed this pattern where instead of riding at 180 and only raising the temperature, the fan kicks on at 210. This is how it's always been. It rides at 180, and going up a hill with a heavy load, the temperature will start to increase, and once it hits 210, the fan kicks on automatically. Or there's a manual on-off for the fan. These days, it rides at about 200 on flat ground, 70 degrees outside with a light load. And only the slightest of incline takes it to 210 and you're turning the fan on. And the fan kicks on more often and it rides at a higher temperature. And I explained this, but I couldn't explain why, because I know why, but I can't tell it to this guy who doesn't, that it's microwave energy in the atmosphere being conducted to those large, dense pieces of metal, as I've said and demonstrated, the microwaves, and as you can test for yourself. Put a potato and a bread roll in the microwave for 1 minute or 2 minutes. The energy goes toward the densest piece, the potato, and it cooks it from the inside out. That's how these plasma fires work. The densest logs burn first and from the inside out. And even on one log, you can see that the knots burn first and hottest, because that's the densest part of the wood, where there are more fibers condensed into a smaller spot. So the knot on the wood is the hardest to saw through because it's denser. And it's the hardest to light on fire in a regular fire because it's dense hard wood. You need a lot of little kindling to even get that dense hard wood going. In these plasma fires, the kindling, the lightweight, easily flammable leaves and weeds remain unburned, and the large, dense logs burn first. From the inside out, knots burn first, fastest, and hottest on an individual log. So, through this demonstration, I've demonstrated that I have an understanding of how these plasma fires work. The speculation comes from, that's why temp gauges are riding higher. And I received confirmation when I was at my last pickup in Pueblo, Colorado. 2 truck drivers standing there at the counter where I'm sitting there waiting for my paperwork. I've already gotten loaded. I'm sitting here listening to them talk. And the one guy says to the other, "What's your transmission ride?" And the other guy said, "Well, in temperatures like this, 230. The other guy said, yeah. And he proceeds to tell the story about how on his way here, his transmission was riding hot. So he pulled over to check it to make sure it has oil. And he said, yeah, it was full, all right, full right down my arm and all over my arm. And he's got a bandage on his arm. He said it blistered up and everything. The hot oil ran down his arm when he checked his transmission because he thought it must be low on oil because it's riding hot. On these trucks, there's a temp gauge for the differential. Not all trucks, mine don't have these gauges, but some trucks have a temp gauge for each one of your differentials, for your transmission, and on the engine it has water temperature and oil temperature. Some even have a pyrometer. It measures the temperature of the exhaust coming out. So this guy is familiar enough with his gauges that he recognizes my transmission's running extra hot here. I'm gonna pull over. He said I pulled over in Green River to check my oil, and sure enough, it was full all over my arm, and I could see the bandage on his arm. So sitting here listening to these guys tells me And it's only 95, 100 degrees. We've had 100-degree days for decades, for as long as they've been driving. So it's not like, well, in these temperatures it runs a little hotter. No, these are the same temperatures as we've experienced before. Even on an 80-degree day when it's not really that hot, your engine's riding hotter. So is your transmission, because they're large, dense masses of material, metal or wood. The densest attracts the microwave, or the potato in the microwave. The densest attracts the most microwave energy and cooks it from the inside out. Your engine and your transmission are dense. They're cooking from the inside out. Even when it's 80 degrees outside, your engine's running hotter. The other guy said, yeah, on my way here, man, I had to keep my fan on almost the whole way. And the other guy's like, yeah, anytime you go uphill, like they're trying to trade trucker wisdom or whatever. I'm not going to interject and tell them what's going on. No more than I'm going to tell the accountant who used to own this truck when he comes to pick it up off the side of the road with me how I know what I know. I'm no longer interested in educating the layman. If they're not caught up, sucks to be them. But that's what's happening right now. Engines are running hotter. You will probably be able to see this in other areas. Trains, airplanes. I heard Kamala's plane had to be landed the other day and they say it's from a hack or whatever. My point is, when I told this to my the accountant who used to own this truck, I said, well, maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe I'll have to watch it a little closer to see if there's really a pattern there or if I'm just imagining things. Because he's going to want to start assessing it from within the bookends of his known reality. Maybe it's the pump this, or maybe the oil has lost its thermal viscosity and it's not dissipating the heat as quickly as it needs to be. No, that's not what's changed. It's not the pump, it's not the oil, it's not any of those things you're going to think of. And if I tell you what it really is, you're going to look at me like I'm crazy. So, ignorance is bliss, and I'll let you stay in your peaceful, blissfully unaware. But I'm no longer interested in educating the layman. We're moving on. There is a separation going on here, and trying to bring as many people on board as possible, that was 2 years ago. Now, I'm here to provide comfort and solace to those who are going through the experience, who can relate to what I'm saying, who do understand the things I say, in order that they know they're not alone. I ain't trying to bring everybody else on board. Those that are already on board, welcome aboard. Glad to have you on board. That's how I'm looking at it these days. I ain't trying to communicate to people that don't understand what I'm saying. Anyway, that's one of the things that's happening. That's what the microwave energy in the atmosphere, one of the symptoms of it is. That I can see on my temp gauges. That I heard stories of confirmation of from the 2 other truck drivers who said, yeah, my fan, hell, I had to keep it on pretty much the whole way here. That's his fan on his motor. When he pulled over in Green River to check his transmission, that's a different high temp. There is no fan on the transmission. So what he's saying is that my motor and my transmission were both running hotter than ever. So much so that I noticed the fan hardly ever even kicked off. And I pulled over in Green River to check my transmission for oil because I thought maybe it's low on oil. Microwave energy is the answer. But I'm not going to tell him. I guess I should explain. In my last video where I was speaking directly in the camera to Mike, the guy that drove the truck at me, as if he might be watching these videos, I sent my dispatcher the sun tunnel video from my channel accidentally. And after I did that, I intentionally sent him a second one of the sun tunnel. So there's a good chance that the people who I work with watch my videos, but don't say nothing, which makes it better that way. That way we can separate business. But I also know Matt's watching my channel too. That he knows about plasma fire and that he's not sharing it with his audience because it is more important to him to satisfy that emotional need, and he still calls himself a truther. The way I know he was watching my channel is because he mentioned Vanessa every video, at least every other video. So much so that when I've said this before, someone in the comment section said, yeah, I noticed it too. I was like, oh, here he goes again, promoting his girlfriend. After Vanessa put up, she's done 2 or 3 different videos on the Muse messages and the plasma fires on content from this channel. Ever since then, he doesn't mention Vanessa anymore and instead tries to, well, maybe it's the devil talking to you. So I know Matt watches this channel. There's no chance that he mentions Vanessa VA like he's obsessed with her. Obviously, he watches all of her videos. There's no chance that he didn't see any of those 3. And it coincides with the fact that he stopped mentioning her and started lashing out at her and attacking her. Typical gamma male behavior. Oh, and Benjamin explained this in some cartoon with the super family. They all have superpowers, and the little gamma boy wants to be just like the superhero. I want to be just like you. I want to be just like, yeah, I'm going to be a superhero too. And then he feels rejection, and from that point forward, he lashes out and tries to attack and destroy. Let's just be straight here. I'm an alpha male. Matt's not. Beta at best. Turtle boy. That's how you attack somebody. Directly. Sorry, I don't mean to be getting all aggressive and hostile like that, so let's move on. I just thought I would mention why I'm speaking directly into the camera, talking to Mike, and how I know that Matt also watches this. So let's talk about some other good stuff. Couple of music videos I got for you. One, Imagine Dragons on Top of the World. It's a blatant mockery of the moon landing. The very first of the video starts out with a little boy in the 60s with a tinfoil hat on his head walking up to a TV screen in a storefront window where everyone's gathered around watching the moon landing. From that point forward, it only becomes more and more and more and more of a blatant, obvious mockery of the moon landing, so much so that if tomorrow they announced the moon landing was fake, Imagine Dragons would come out and point to that video on Top of the World and say, we were trying to tell you. On that note, I got a couple more music videos I'm going to tell you too, but on that note, the lying lovers and the moon landing occurred to me yesterday. The same talking heads on TV that'll talk about the moon landing seriously as if it's all legit, interviewing a NASA guy and blah, 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 in private, amongst their friends and peers, if asked, do you believe in the moon landing? Are you kidding? Who believes in the moon landing anymore? In public, they act as if it's legit, and totally they believe in it, of course, because they don't want to be shamed as a truther or a conspiracy theorist. Remember, you live in an era where truther is a pejorative, a name that you call someone, a derogatory name. What's the opposite of a truther? A liar. Those who love the lie so much that they will be given a great deception and a great delusion. So those same talking heads on TV that talk about it as if it's legit and they believe in it, in private, they don't want to be shamed as naive. So they say, of course I don't believe in no stupid moon landing. Get out of here. Who still believes in that? So 95% of the population, if asked privately amongst just close friends, they say, of course I don't believe in that. But publicly, like at work, well, yeah, I believe in the moon landing. Publicly, they don't want to be shamed as a truther or conspiracy theorist. Privately, they don't want to be shamed as naive. Shame in both situations is what motivates them. The Lying Lovers is a sonnet by Shakespeare, and I'm not a Shakespeare reader, but I think it's 138. Where there's these two lovers, an older man like 55 and a younger girl, and the older guy tells the younger girl that he's 35 approximately. He tells her he tells her that he's younger than he really is, and she knows that he's lying, and she pretends to believe him, and she tells him that she's honest and pure as anything ever could be, and he pretends to believe her. And in this dynamic, they're both lying to the other one. They both know that the other one is lying to them, and they both know that their own lies are not believed by the other one, yet they continue in this relationship. The Lying Lovers. Apply that to the moon landing and the talking heads, who know that they're lying to you, and they know you don't believe it, and they know that you know that they're lying to you, but we all continue on in this relationship. It's coming to an end real soon. Turns out truth really does matter, and the Pied Piper's ready to be paid. Just gonna quickly breeze over this one, but it's by Imagine Dragons. And I'm trying, Thunder. It's called Thunder. The lightning, then the thunder. There's always lightning before the thunder. 3 aliens land. One of them does a little tongue dance for you, and she's got the forked tongue. Just watch it for yourself. It's like a small movie. In fact, it starts out, this is a film by, and it says the name of the director. It's like a small movie, 3-minute movie. Again, you don't consider that truth drops until after the fact, when you can look back. Or until it's been so long enough everyone knows the moon landing's fake, and you can look at the one where Imagine Dragons made on top of the world and say, obviously that's truth drops. So blatant they're just mocking it. But you look at the one with the 3 aliens, and there's a lot of sheep. Sheep is the other theme of that music video called Thunder. Just watch it for yourself. There's another music video by Imagine Dragons. I'll include link in the description. At 3 minutes 24 seconds, they depict the ignition of a plasma fire. You see a grass field and a fire burning right here with flames. And then over here in the corner, it starts to glow. It glows a little hotter, a little oranger, a little brighter. And then you see a flame ignition. And then they switch to another scene, and then they come back and they show the 2 fires fully burning. But if you watch closely and you know what you're looking at, they're showing you the ignition of a plasma fire that combusts without any external source of ignition. Now we're going to talk about UFO disclosure and the coming Luciferian deception, aka the biggest witch hunt on Earth. I'm going to include 2 links in the description that some guy sent me via text message and asked me to give him my opinions on. They're both pretty much the same thing. One of them is by Extreme Reality Check. And she is trying to appeal to the fence sitters in the song Cutthroat. I can't lie, I've been played by powerful people who get their way. And he's referring to religion. He's talking about how I built this Gethsemane and quietly built this tower patiently. Cutthroat, you ought to listen to it. But the difference right now, a big difference, a big separation is going on between leaders and followers. It's separating the leaders and the followers. The fighters from those who aren't fighters. And one of the biggest divisions right now is those who can accept they've been played by powerful people who get their way. And in this link I'll include in the description that a guy sent me that he wanted my opinion on, Extreme Reality Check is implying that she's such a truther, she's so out of the box that she's going to lose some subscribers. Some of these traditional Christians, these fundamentalist Christians that aren't going to like what she says, so they're going to unsubscribe. And then she proceeds to mirror the same exact response and tell you, don't trust them. When they come, it's demonic fallen angels. Don't trust them. So she's appealing to the people who want to think outside the box, who don't want to just continue getting played, who recognize that they have been played, and trying to get them to jump back in the box and respond exactly as all the other millions and millions on that wide open path that leads to destruction. She's trying to appeal to the fence sitters, to the truthers, and get them back in the box by presenting herself as such a truther that traditional Christians are going to unsubscribe. Portraying herself as someone, I think for myself, I reinterpret the definitions of words, I do the etymology, I don't just take whatever's spoon-fed to me. And I come to the same exact conclusion as all those fundamentalist Christians that these are evil, demonic, Luciferian, fallen angels, and don't trust them. I hope that makes sense to you. She's trying to get the people that are about to think for themselves and respond individually, which is what the whole COVID has allowed us to do. Freed us from groupthink and prevented the likelihood of any individual or masses amounts of people to follow groupthink, herd mentality, witch hunt behavior. Because we've already been on a witch hunt for the last 2 years. So now when they tell us, oh, new witch hunt, there's the new witches. That's what she's trying to do. Is get people that are almost out of the box, that are sitting on the fence, that recognize they've been played, to get back in the box and respond exactly the same way as all of those other brainwashed Christians by portraying herself. I'm not a brainwashed Christian. No, I question everything and think for myself and do my own research. And I'm going to respond exactly the same as all those fundamentalist brainwashed Christians. And you should do the same. If you're a truther and you think out of the box and you're not brainwashed, then you should respond exactly as the same as all those other brainwashed people are going to. When you see what you're about to see, join the witch hunt. That's what she's doing on Extreme Reality Check. Link is in the description. The other one is by a guy whose name I don't know, but he's a Mandela-affected Christian who's processing, going through the 5 stages of grief, denial, negotiation, anger, depression, acceptance. And he's acknowledging that there have been changes in the Bible, but that you should still read it. That the Bible is not the eternal Word of God. He repeats that many times and says that eternal Word of God comes from within. But you should still read the Bible. He says that a bunch of times. Don't stop reading it. Just read it with discernment now that you know it's all full of shit and twisted and backwards and upside down. He's negotiating. He's beyond denial, but he's still negotiating. And that's what he's doing. He's trying to process. On the subject of Mandela effect, a few of the biblical changes are what's most impressive to me. Some of the others are not. And I am certain that a lot of the Mandela effects out there are just bullshit, meant to muddy the waters, so that you don't see the few that are so impressive, you're like, that is something that's changed. The few that stand out to me are the lion will lay with the lamb. It's what everyone remembers. And there's paintings and murals and sculptures to show that that's how everyone remembered it for hundreds of years. And now it says the wolf will lay with the lamb. One of the examples the guy uses in the link in the description where I'm talking about he's a Mandela-affected Christian who's still trying to take the Bible seriously. One of the changes he mentions is judge not lest ye be judged. He's like, that's nowhere in there. The wording is close enough that I could see how that was just changed to a colloquialism for, you know, a common phraseology that's not the same exact words that's in the Bible, but it means the same sentiment. So that one's not impressive to me. Any more than Kit Kat with a dash or the spelling of Febreze. All of those are subterfuge to muddy the waters. One example of proof, links in the description. Sweet dreams are made of this. She mixes the word these and this, and you can hear it. It's hard to tell whether she's saying sweet dreams are made of these or sweet dreams are made of this. She blends the two words, this. Sweet dreams are made of this. You can't even tell which she's saying, but people are claiming that's a Mandela effect. It's to discredit the Mandela effect. And you put so many little meaningless, insignificant changes out there under the Mandela effect banner that people that go to investigate it never even find the couple that are like, okay, there's something to this. They get hung up on Kit Kat with a dash and the spelling of Febreze and go, these people are fucking crazy. I'm out of here. Couple that convinced me is the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we would forgive those who have trespassed against us. Everyone remembers that. It now says, forgive us our debts as we would forgive our debtors. That isn't the same sentiment. That's not pretty close wording. That is so different that has been changed. The paintings and the murals all show a lion and a lamb. In that phrase of the Bible, the actual wording, it does say the word lion and lamb over here, but over here it says wolf and lamb. Wolf and lamb, and then lions over here like a sentence later. Why aren't there paintings and murals and sculptures of a wolf and a lamb if it's interpretable either way? But people are seeing that it says wolf and a lamb, and I don't remember shit about no wolf. And the lion isn't mentioned till like another sentence later. That one, because of all the murals and paintings and sculptures that have a lion and a lamb, convinces me that one's true. Another one is where it says, so-and-so put a water bottle on your shoulder. Back then they didn't have water bottles. They were called wine skins. That's what they transported and carried liquids in, beverages, wine skins, like the intestines of a cow or something. And you could throw a wine skin over someone's shoulder or on someone's shoulder. You don't put a water bottle on someone's shoulder. Many of the others are just subterfuge to discredit, to add confusion to the conversation. One that no one else has picked up on yet is the beam and the mote. The parable of the beam and the mote. Remove the beam from your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to remove the mote from your brother's, is referring to pupil shape. A beam and a mote. But there are paintings and murals and sculptures out there with a guy who has a 4x4 post sticking out of his face. It's like with those paintings and murals and sculptures, they are mocking you, showing what ridiculous nonsense that you believe by painting it and putting it in a picture for you so you can see it for yourself. Now that I've given you a different understanding and interpretation of that parable, you have a choice. Do you believe that it represents pupil shape? Or are you going to go with the 4x4 sticking out of the face interpretation? Because that's the official canonized doctrine. That's the traditional interpretation. One change. If you recognize that's talking about pupil shape, it changes a lot of other things about the Bible. That's an example of how one change of interpretation, not even changing the words, just interpretation, changes the whole Bible. And once you recognize the real interpretation and what it really means, one change can reinterpret the whole Bible, or at least large portions thereof, with that one change. Add 2 or 3 other changes, and why would you continue reading the Bible? That's what this guy's doing when he says, yeah, the Mandela effect's real. He acknowledges a lot of the things that people claim as Mandela effects out there are not. But he says, don't stop reading the Bible. What? I can't lie, I've been played by powerful people who get their way. Right now, a separation is happening between those who can acknowledge the truth that they've been played and those who don't want to accept it. And just to wrap it up, the UFO disclosure is not on a lull, and it's not a slow news day in the UFO disclosure department. They're letting it sink in, what they already showed you. Craft that go in and out of the water, and they told you they've been clocked at hundreds of kilometers per hour underwater. The Israeli Space Force Defense Minister came out while Trump was still in office and said that there's a galactic federation, that Trump knows about it, that we have bases on Mars, and that this galactic federation, the good news, he said, is that we've made deals with them to do experiments here. The Department of Defense, just a month or 2 ago, came out, took a podium and said, yes, we have downed spacecraft, and the technology that we've derived from those downed spacecraft is going to change our lives forever. That means they've had these downed spacecraft for a long time, long enough that they've developed technology from them that's going to change our lives forever. That means that craft didn't just fall out of the sky yesterday. They're letting it sink in. They're letting it process through the system and digest. It's not that there's nothing else to say on the subject. It's not that we don't have anything else to say. It's that we're waiting for you to process what we've already told you before we show you the next thing. James True gave a 70-day estimate of when the switch will be flipped. I don't know what he means by that. He's very cryptic in that. But I think we're going to see whatever it was he was referring to and be able to point at that and go, ah, that's what you meant. So my general notion is that there was a deal made like 50 years ago during the Eisenhower administration for them to do experiments here. And part of that deal was that you would disclose to the Earthlings the truth about our presence and your relationship with us over the next 50 years. Okay, deal. 50 years later, okay, time's up. No, we need another 50 years. The people that are in power now didn't make those deals. Too late. The disclosure is underway. Those who are in power want to hang on to their power and push back the disclosure as long as possible. Not only that, the release of free energy, 0-point energy is what they call it. Greg Braden referred to this collective initiation that we would go through, awakening to 0 point and beyond 0 point, the collective initiation. Releasing that technology is going to destroy every economy on the planet. They're all petrodollar based. My understanding is there are those who stayed here, extraterrestrials if you will, fallen angels if you must, who laid low and convinced the world they didn't exist, so that when their big brothers and their father and the whole kingdom of heaven return, those that laid low and stayed here can cause havoc on earth. As soon as they appear, those that are down here start causing hell on earth, and you associate it with those who have recently arrived. Because you didn't know that those who were here the whole time were here the whole time, and they did it intentionally. So that when the family comes home, those that stayed here the whole time reveal themselves, scare the shit out of you, and make you think that what they are doing and the destruction that they are causing here is a result of the new arrivals. We are like 5-year-old children who had their teenage brother and sister enslave us while mom and dad went away on vacation, and mom and dad are back. The only reason they don't dislodge them from power immediately is for our sake, in order to gradually reintroduce us to the truth about who we are. It is not that they don't have the power to wipe them out. Any directed energy that's been developed here by the fallen ones that stayed is puny and insignificant compared to the technology of the greater kingdom of heaven. It's not a challenge. There will be bloodshed and destruction, but it's not because it's an evenly matched fight. It'll be swift. God's getting us to the point where we're okay when he hits the button. And that's all it is a matter of pressing a button. But first they got to draw them all out onto the battlefield, which is what they did with COVID, which is what I said on the way to Missouri. That first we got to draw them all out onto the battlefield before God pushes the button. The way they drew them out onto the battlefield exposed the globalists, smoking them out of their holes. You'll know them by the fruits of their labor. Anyone who went along with the COVID plan, thinking this is part of our global takeover, you know them by their fruits now. They're all out on the battlefield. And through the same COVID process, the public has been conditioned not to follow the lead of the authorities. Think for yourself. The church authorities or the state authorities are in lockstep with one another. That has been shown to be true. Not a yes, sir, not a follower. This is a scene from Thunder by Imagine Dragons.